Well, this is the Electro-Harmonix Satisfaction Fuzz, which does pretty much nail the sound of Keith Richards playing Satisfaction. But in my recent research trying to figure out what fuzz was used for Spirit in the Sky, I ran across the fact that the Satisfaction Fuzz here was actually a pretty much carbon copy of the Jordan Boss Tone Nashville circuit. And it was pointed out that the output capacitor and the clipping diodes in that final stage before the output, that those were omitted from the circuit, and that the pads for that capacitor and the diodes were there through hole construction, so you could add these things and essentially build a Jordan Boss Tone. I have a correct value 22 nanofarad output cap and a couple of silicone diodes here to add to the circuit to turn it into the Boss Tone. Now, also doing my research, these do seem to use silicon diodes and not germanium. I have a bucket full of germanium diodes. I've tried them and it sounds pretty freaking weird. So anyway, going with the silicone diode seems to be the way to go. Now, also what I've seen people do is that they add a switch somewhere, either like here on the side where there's a lot of open space, and that way they can switch it in, and they can have the original Satisfaction Fuzz, or they can turn on the additional clipping and this bass cap in there to get a little bit more low end. So that's what I am planning to do. Buzz out a few things, make some notes, and then I'm going to add these components with a bypass switch. All right, one thing I want to make sure of before I start making any crazy changes is I want to understand what is ground in here. So I've got the continuity tester on. Let's see, this should be ground, that's ground, that's ground. All right, so those two pads on the lower side of those diodes, those two pads are ground. These three pads, the upper part of the diode, and okay, so these three pads here are all connected, and this guy should be connected to the output, which I think also uses C4, okay, which it does. All right. So the idea is that the output from the original circuit here comes out across C4 and the open C7, which we're going to bridge. This capacitor measures extremely low, so that's why this has such a high frequency tending output sound. But anyway. All right, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the capacitor. I'm going to connect that upper leg, and let's see, how do I want to do this? I want to connect that so it's not in play until I flip the switch, and I also want the diodes to not be in play until I flip the switch as well. So how do I need to do that? Let me check some stuff before I make any changes. All right, so my thinking is, after poking around on this, the output is going to come from this C4, C7 spot here at the top. This isn't connected to anywhere else other than right there. These three pads are connected together, and then these two bottom pads are connected to ground. So it makes sense to me that if I carry a wire from this top pad to one of these lugs on the switch, then from the switch, I will go into the capacitor. The capacitor will end there, and carry across to the two diodes that get put in place across here and go to ground. So I can go ahead and put the diodes in place. I can put one leg of the capacitor in, and then this other leg will be free floating, and then a wire to the switch and a wire back from the switch going to that top pad. That should bypass that entire output branch if everything goes according to plan. All right, that's my plan. Okay, so there is my Electro-Harmonix Satisfaction Fuzz with the Jordan Boss Tone output mod. And I don't know which one is which. So I suspect that the mod is up and Satisfaction normal mode is down. All right, let's give it a test and see how it sounds. Well, I know my playing leaves a lot to be desired, but I will say that the Satisfaction Fuzz here, on its own, it's a pretty decent fuzz pedal. It seems a little thin, but in order to play Satisfaction, even as badly as I did, you kind of need that thin nasal tone. It comes through really well. What I've done is I've added those clipping diodes in the output stage, and this switch, really all it does is it adds that extra 22 nanofarad cap there. It lifts the base frequencies up a little bit. So there's a lot more girth in that output signal, and I actually kind of like it. Does it sound like Spirit in the Sky? Not exactly. There's some other things that need to go in to the circuit in order to get the Spirit in the Sky tone. And I'm working on another pedal here that I'll talk about at a later time. You know, and it's getting close. I've been obsessed with finding out what the Spirit in the Sky sound is for about the past year. And this is close, but I don't think this is the solution. And it's, you know, because this was based on the Jordan Boss Tone Nashville circuit, I was hopeful that if I made the extra additions to the circuit to essentially turn it into the Boss Tone, that I would be that much closer to getting Spirit in the Sky. It's close, but it doesn't have that splutter that Spirit in the Sky has. It's not quite there yet. So I'm getting there. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you find one of these Satisfaction Fuzz, it's easy enough just to add a capacitor and a couple of diodes, and you got a whole different pedal, and it's just a cool effect. So I recommend it. I think it's cool. Anyway, I will catch you guys next time. I've got more stuff about Norman Greenbaum's Spirit in the Sky guitar tone coming up with my extra special effect add-on that I'm working on here. I will catch you guys then, and check you later.